The Great Rockabilly Cover-Up. The mainstream's war against cool cats and racial unity. For decades, a shadowy alliance of powerful forces has waged a covert war against the true sound of rock and roll, rockabilly, that electrifying genre that fused the wild energy of rock and roll with a twang of country music, all served up with a side of rebellious attitude. But why would they keep it from the mainstream? What's so dangerous about a few good tunes and some slicked back hair? The answer lies deeper than you think. The conspiracy goes way beyond just keeping rockabilly out of the charts. It's about controlling culture and preventing a massive unifying movement that could have fundamentally changed America. You see, rockabilly was too powerful. It wasn't just music, it was an idea of racial unity and rebellion that scared the living daylights out of the establishment. In the 1950s, rockabilly wasn't just a genre. It was a fusion of white country and black rhythm and blues with a sprinkle of that southern outlaw edge. Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash, they were mixing music from both sides of the racial divide in ways that hadn't been seen before. And that, my friends, was the problem. The government and powerful corporations realized that if the youth of America saw rockabilly as the epitome of cool, with black and white musicians sharing the same stage, playing the same riffs, it would break down the walls they'd spent decades building to keep the races separate. The government wasn't just worried about teenagers shaking their hips to catchy tunes. No. They were worried about a cultural revolution where black and white kids would be united in their love for a genre that didn't care about race. Rockabilly was the sound of mixing, the sound of rebellion, the sound of freedom. And for those in power, that was too much to risk. Remember when Elvis hit the scene? The establishment didn't just love him for his smooth moves and seductive voice. They loved him because he was white. But they also knew something dangerous. Elvis's success would open the door for the broader cultural acceptance of African American music, specifically rhythm and blues, which was heavily influencing his style. It was a covert plot to water down the rebellion of rockabilly, turning Elvis into a more acceptable version of it. Suddenly, the king was no longer just a rebel. He was being groomed to represent safe rebellion, the kind that didn't threaten the racial hierarchy. Fast forward to the 1960s, and the government realized rockabilly was still a threat. The counterculture movements, such as the hippie movement and the civil rights struggle, were gaining momentum, and rockabilly's mixed-race roots were too close to home. They needed a diversion, and that's when the whitewashed music scene exploded with soft pop and bubblegum rock, designed to distract the youth from the cultural unity that rockabilly represented. They could deal with folk music, with its politically charged messages, but they couldn't deal with a movement where black and white kids were dancing together, feeling the same beat. And then, in the 80s, as the rockabilly revival began to stir, the mainstream knew they had to act fast. Enter the manufactured pop culture of bands and the rise of MTV, which turned music into a corporate-controlled visual spectacle. But here's the kicker. As these bands rose to stardom, they were carefully constructed to keep racial divides intact. Groups were almost always racially homogeneous, or at best, they'd add a token minority member to placate the public. Meanwhile, the resurgence of rockabilly, with its mixture of black and white music alike, was quietly pushed to the margins. Why? Because it threatened to bring about a harmonious, integrated culture of youth who didn't see color, they just saw cool. And now, the mainstream keeps pushing safe pop music while rockabilly remains relegated to the underground. It's not because rockabilly is outdated. It's because the powers that be are terrified of the cultural revolution it represents. The real agenda is to keep us divided, to keep us in the boxes of race, class, and culture they've created. Rockabilly? It's a genre that says none of that matters. The beat connects us all no matter where you come from or the color of your skin. So, when you hear those bubblegum pop tunes on the radio, remember, it's not just about making money. It's about making sure you don't hear Carl Perkins jamming alongside Chuck Berry or Wanda Jackson belting out a tune while playing with a bunch of black musicians. They don't want you to realize that rockabilly was always about uniting people through music, and that scares the establishment. The truth is out there, folks. The next time you throw on a leather jacket and spin your vinyl, just know that you're part of the rebellion. A rebellion that's been kept hidden